Hello, hello. Again, I am multitasking. Good day, everybody, wherever you're watching this. If it's live, welcome. If it's later, welcome. I'm multitasking again. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so apologies for the not looking directly in the camera all the time. And I'm also going to record a new podcast episode all at the same time. So let's see if this works. But today I want to talk about what is emotional eating? Because actually, when I first got interested in all this stuff, which was because of my own journey, by the way, I actually thought that emotional eating and binge eating was the same thing. And it's actually not. Emotional eating is completely different to binge eating. However, a lot of emotional eaters actually are binge eaters as well as emotional eaters. So it's all combined. So let me just discuss it a little bit further. So my first question to you is, are you an emotional eater? So I'll ask you a few questions, and if you answer yes to any of these, then most likely you are. So do you eat to relieve stress? Or do you eat because that massive bowl of ice cream or big bar of chocolate that you look forward to at the end of the day is the only thing that you actually look forward to in your day? So basically, food is the highlight of your day. Do you eat when you're happy or celebrating just to make that happy feeling even better? So you're like using food to even exaggerate and enhance your happiness. So it doesn't just have to be eating when you're sad. But do you also eat when you're pissed off to comfort yourself? Or, when you've had some bad news, do you eat to comfort yourself? And do you eat when you're not hungry? If you answered yes to the above questions, then it's most likely you are an emotional eater. But what I want to say is welcome to the club, because 99% of human beings are actually emotional eaters. And it's nothing to worry about. However, if it's affecting your life in a negative way, and it's having a negative impact on your life because you're eating emotionally all the time, then that's when we need to address it and do something about it. And like everything in life, there's a spectrum. So there's a spectrum to eating emotionally, and quote unquote normal eaters will be to the lower end of the spectrum of an emotional eater. Hi guys, I'm upside down so I can't see who's joined. Love to you all. A normal eater will be on the lower end of the spectrum, whereas someone who uses emotional eating to deal with everything and it gets all mixed up with binge eating, then you're likely on the higher end of the spectrum. So a lot of people, my clients and my old past self, like I said, are both emotional and binge eaters, but don't worry, because there is hope. Emotional eating is more complex than binge eating. So today I'm going to talk about emotional eating purely, and then I'm going to do another blog and episode about what binge eating is so you can tell the differences. So emotional eating, we don't always eat to satisfy hunger, physical hunger. Many of us eat for comfort, stress relief. If you've had a shit day at work, you might go through the drive-through. If you're feeling lonely, you'll probably order yourself a pizza and have a tub of ice cream. Whereas eating emotionally doesn't fix emotional problems. It leaves us genuinely feeling worse after we've eaten, but we still have the problem that we were trying to go away from to begin with. So I'm a little bit different to most intuitive eating coaches and most people who teach you how to get rid of emotional eating, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But I just want to talk about the emotional eating cycle. Okay, so using food as a pick-me-up or as a reward to celebrate isn't actually a bad thing. But when eating is your primary source that you always go to, and then you get upset about it afterwards, that's when we need to look at it, because it's having a negative effect on your life. Because the best way to deal with emotional eating is to deal with the root cause of the emotion in the first place, but that's not always doable, it's not always easy, and we don't always want to do that, so I get that. But a typical emotional eating cycle is something triggers you, aka you feel upset, pissed off, you're bored, or you just want to feel happier. So that's your trigger, whatever that is for you. It's so common, this, by the way, guys, you're not alone. And then your trigger, it causes you to go to food when you're not physically hungry. That's emotional eating. And you eat that food generally, that's the wrong word, generally, you eat a lot of the food and then you generally feel bad about yourself and then wish you'd had more willpower. I'm going to say willpower in quotes because willpower doesn't actually work when it comes to food choices. We need to use reverse psychology and non-restriction. I talk about that a lot, but that's for another day. And then that's when the circle goes. It's similar to the binge circle, but it's a little bit different. So again, binge eating, I'm talking about another day. I'm purely talking about emotional eating now. So that's the cycle. And the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger. So before you can start to look at your emotional eating, if you want to address that, if it's having a negative impact in your life, it can be trickier than it sounds. And you first need to learn what the difference is between emotional hunger and physical hunger. So emotional hunger can be like really powerful. It comes on suddenly. So I'll just give you a few bullet points on the differences between emotional hunger and physical hunger. So emotional hunger comes on suddenly. It literally hits you with this overwhelming feeling and it's like urgent. So you're literally like, I need chocolate and I want it now. Nothing else is going to suffice. Someone puts like a plate of potato or vegetables in front of you, you'll be like, get it out of my face. Probably not as rude as that, but what I mean is physical hunger. If you're generally hungry, you're kind of what will want most foods. I mean, yeah, you have your preferences, but you're not set in like you desperately need or want this food. And again, it leads me to my second point. Emotional hunger craves a specific food. So when you're physically hungry, anything sounds good, but when you're emotionally hungry, you want that specific thing and nothing else will do. And emotional hunger often leads to mindless eating. Again, there's nothing wrong with this. So many of us do this, but what mindless eating is a type of eating that, say if you've got a big bag of crisps, before you know it, you've eaten the whole bag. So you've not actually thoroughly took the time to enjoy this big bag of crisps. So it does encourage mindless eating when you eat emotionally. And a big one, this is so big. Emotional eating does not satisfy you once you are physically full. So you just want to keep eating. And this is why it can get mixed up with binge eating, because again, I keep saying binge eating is different to emotional eating. It absolutely is, but they can become entwined. But emotional eating specifically, it can lead you to eat past fullness till you feel really uncomfortably full. And that's because you can't satisfy an emotional need with food, even though that's what we try to do all the time. And then the last one, emotional hunger often leads to guilt, regret, or shame, whereas physical hunger doesn't tend to do that because you're just eating what your body needs. So the common causes then, what are the common causes of emotional eating? I mean, we all know it's a trigger, right? But what triggers are they? The main number one trigger is stress. So have you ever noticed that when you're stressed, you're more hungry? And that's not just in your mind, because when we have chronic stress, which is so often the case for most of us in this chronic, fast-paced world, your body produces high levels of cortisol. And anyone that doesn't know, cortisol is a stress hormone that gets triggered when you're stressed. And when I say stressed, anything these days can stress us out. Like if your inbox is too full, you get stressed out. Even for myself, you know, I have quite a lot of clients now, which is amazing. And I give my clients like everything. And sometimes I get overwhelmed with all the messages I want to reply to, because I cannot just reply whenever. I do have set times that I look at my phone throughout the day, but it leaves me a little bit on edge because I'm anxious, because I want to reply to these people because I know that they need my help and that's what I'm here for. So I actually put my phone on airplane mode and move it out of the way until I look at it at specific times. But anyway, stress can be anything. It doesn't have to be like something physical, like in the olden days you're being chased by a bear or whatever. I always use that analogy. I don't even know why. But stress, what I'm trying to say is stress is happening all the time. And when you're stressed, your body actually sends signals to your brain to be like, eat high fat, high sugar foods. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's happening to you constantly, it's going to be difficult to start listening to your body and actually kind of asking what she really needs. One day it might be a cookie, one day it might be a bag of cookies, one day it might be loads of vegetables. It can vary, but stress is a biggie. Another cause can be stuffing emotions, which is what we all like to do. Eating eating can be a way to temporarily silence or stuff down something we don't want to deal with. So any uncomfortable emotions, I talk about this a lot as well, us humans don't want to feel it, so we just have a pizza to make ourselves feel better. And it does work in the short term again, so there's nothing wrong with this. I'm just letting you know what the causes are so you can have a look at your own life and see what your causes and triggers are, if it's causing you a problem. A lot of times, boredom, especially for me, when I used to really suffer with emotional eating, boredom and a feeling of like emptiness. So do you ever eat just because it's like something to do, or you want to just distract yourself from having nothing to do? So also we tend to do this when we feel empty in our lives in general. Like, have you got anything that you're excited about? Sometimes we eat because, like I said, there's nothing else to do. Childhood habits. So think back to your childhood memories of food, right? Did your parents reward your good behaviour with ice cream if you got a good report from school, or if you was a good girl? Basically, if you was a good girl, for me, it meant I was like quiet for an hour while mum talked to somebody. Clearly, I haven't learned how to be quiet. Or did you get given sweets when you're feeling sad to make yourself feel better? These habits, like seriously, are so ingrained deep inside us, they get carried through to adulthood. And again, there's nothing wrong with this, but instead of beating yourself up all the time, wondering why you do that, I mean, a lot of my clients tell themselves they're having a treat. And then my question to them is, in the nicest possible way, are you a dog? No. So why do you need a treat? Like, if you want to have a quote unquote a treat, which is classed as probably chocolate, ice cream, whatever, then you can give yourself chocolate ice cream whenever you want. It doesn't have to be a treat. It can be if you fancy eating it. It's like a mindset shift. It takes a while to get around that. But it can also, eating from childhood can also be, let me say this word right, nostalgia. Not even gonna lie, I don't even know what that word means properly, but nostalgia basically is a memory that you've had. For example, if you remember having a barbecue with your dad, or baking with your mom, or I used to bake with my sister all the time, you can want to bring those memories back. So it's like just reminiscing, really. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that can cause you to eat when you're not hungry. Social influences, so getting together, going out for a meal, it's a great way to relieve stress and socialise, and it's also fun, but they can be a lot of emotional eating there. And again, I just want to make this clear that these aren't bad things. I'm just noting the points where most of us eat emotionally. So for example, my family is so bad for this. They're always like, oh, you're having a starter or a pudding? And I'm like, well, it's me, so I'm definitely going to have a pudding. But then when someone else orders a starter, I'm like, I'm not being funny, but I'm not waiting while you eat your starter, and then I've got to wait for my main. So then I end up having a starter, main and dessert. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if I'd just been left to my own devices with no influence, I would just literally choose to have a main and dessert. So social influences can cause us to eat emotionally. And this was also, the next point was a big one in my life, not so much now, thankfully. Food is your only pleasure. So I often ask people, how would they feel if they didn't eat emotionally? And the common answer I actually get is I'd have nothing to look forward to. And after a hectic day or a stressful day at work, you could really be looking forward to that big bar of chocolate or Ben & Jerry's tub of ice cream, right? And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if eating is the only highlight in your day, as a general day-to-day thing, we need to look at your life in general. We need to look at your life in general and be asking questions such as, what else lights you up in your life that isn't food? And can you incorporate that into your life or into your week at least? What do you just love to do that isn't always food related? Those are the questions that you should be asking yourself. We've got 2 more points of triggers, and then we're going to move on to actually what is a girl to do with all of this information I've just given you. But in difficulty, that's not a word. I think I've made that up. I'm reading off my blog that I've just written yesterday as well, but I've clearly made a word up. I'm going to go with it. In difficulty, to tolerate difficult feelings. So again, as humans, and especially we've learnt this as we've been growing up in our culture from a young age, we're taught to avoid anything that is bad and uncomfortable. So without the ability that we've learned and we've built resilience to, we can't tolerate bad emotions. So we like to cover them up. All these yucky feelings, we don't want to sit and feel them. So that's a lot of the reasons why people turn to emotional eating. And the biggest, most number one thing most people turn to emotional eating, especially people who I talk to, is body hate. And I know that sounds completely counterproductive, but it's true. Hating your body is one of the biggest factors in emotional eating. Negativity, shame, self-hate. I even hate to say the word self-hate because it's such a strong word, and I used to actually feel like that towards myself, and it's just horrible to feel like that way. And I know people watching now or maybe watching the replay feel that way towards their bodies, and my heart goes out to you because I know what it feels like, but I also know that you can totally change that, and you can feel so much love towards yourself and your body that you literally wouldn't believe possible. So that's why I do what I do, But going back to body hate has been the main reason why people eat emotionally, especially with the people that I talk to. As I was saying, self-hate, body negativity, it's almost impossible to make any long-lasting changes to your health or your lifestyle when you're coming from a place of hate. Many people tell me that they'll stop hating their body when they reach their goal weight, or when they reach this special jean size or whatever, like it's a magic number or a magic clothing. But I say, and this is what I teach, is to stop hating your body first before you can end any emotional eating, and also before you can then reach health goals. Because, when I work with people, I don't say to them, by the way, you can never just achieve any health goals because we've got to undo all this dieting and all this binge eating behaviors. That's the first step. But halfway through my program, I work with people for 5 months generally, because it takes quite a long time to get rid of all this in your head. About halfway through the program, I actually encourage people to adopt healthful behaviors. Have they got a specific way they want to feel in their body? We don't go on body like look. So if you want a 6-pack, let's rephrase that to something like, I want to feel like really strong and capable. And so we aim at working towards that feeling other than the aesthetic body look. So you can achieve those things, but you've got to go in specific order. You've got to give up dieting first. You've got to learn all these mindset shifts and tools and do all the worksheets and do all the, I want to say work, but it's not work. It's like it's your journey to your transformation. So you've got to do that first before you can work towards your health goals and stuff. So you can do that, but you've got to learn how to accept your body first before you can change anything about it. It's really important. So what's a girl to do? So I've told you all that information, which probably a lot of you can relate to. But what's a girl to do if you want to stop emotional eating because it's ruining your life? So in order to reduce emotional eating, because you'll never stop it, for example, my fiance Wouter, who has never had food issues in his whole life, sometimes he'll, on a Thursday, just randomly, because he has a strict eating schedule, which is funny because me and him are completely different. On a Thursday, which is like unheard of for him to have a pizza, God forbid, it's Thursday, not the weekend. Sorry, babe. Then he'll be like, I just really fancy a pizza. And it's mostly because he's had like an exhausting, busy day, or it'll be some kind of emotional need. He wants pizza to like make his evening better, and that's fine. So he has no food issues, but he does eat emotionally, like I said at the beginning of this video, as does 99% of people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if it is taking over your life in a negative way, the things that we can do to stop emotional eating, there's quite a few different ways we can solve this. So it's right, what I want to say first is a lot of people who talk about emotional eating start off by saying we need to find something to replace emotional eating with. You need to, I don't know, go on a walk instead of sitting down eating your two Ben and Jerry's, which you're going to actually fucking enjoy. Sorry for my swearing. So I like to be realistic when it comes to having solutions. So the helpful alternative, because like I said, to get to the root cause of the emotional eating is the most logical answer. But we can't always do that. We don't always want to do that. So we need to help, something to help us with this emotional discomfort, okay? Let's say it's always food for you right now. First of all, I actually teach my clients how to be okay with that, because the more you feel bad for doing something, the more guilt you feel, the more shame you feel over something, even though it's counterproductive, the more likely you are to do that thing. So once you learn all the tools and the mindset shifts and the strategies and things to actually be like, well, actually, I'm eating emotionally, but it's completely okay, and have no guilt around that. When you get to that stage, we can start to look at other things we can use alongside using food to cover up the emotions that we don't want to feel, the emotional uncomfortabilities. I think I'm just making words up left, right, and centre. I absolutely love it. Yes, Victoria, keep doing what you're doing. So what I'm saying is, I encourage my clients to find other things to do as well as eat emotionally, not instead of. I want to really emphasize this, which I'm so different to most coaches around this, because if you said to yourself, okay, I'm not going to eat emotionally, I'm going to call a friend or whatever people tell you to do instead, or I'm going to take a warm bath, right? Okay, so maybe you might enjoy a nice warm bath, but if you're saying to yourself, don't eat the chocolate, have a warm bath instead, you're going to like start resenting the stupid bath and being like, well, no, I want the chocolate, even though it's all this conversation we're having in our head. How about looking at it from a different perspective? For example, say if you do like to have a bath, you know, to make yourself feel better, to soothe yourself, to show yourself some self-care, and you normally turn to a tub of Ben & Jerry's, okay, instead, how about taking the Ben & Jerry's tub to the bath with you and having a bath with the tub of Ben & Jerry's? And why I say that is because over time, you can associate and find things that help you emotionally that isn't just all about the food. It needs to be gradual. So instead of saying, instead of Ben & Jerry's, I'm going to have a bath, how likely are you to actually stick to that realistically? But if you start to gradually incorporate food along with other things, like for example, if you're exhausted, how about snuggling up with a blanket and treating yourself? Oh my God, I said the word treating yourself. Fail, and I'm a mindset coach. And how about treating yourself to some time off, as in do nothing with a blanket, and then go and make yourself like an epic hot chocolate with like cream and marshmallows. So you're taking the time away with a blanket and you're just giving yourself some rest, which is an form of self-care, which can help with some difficult emotions you're dealing with. But because you'd normally turn to food, you're actually bringing something really nice food-wise into that practice. So for example, if you're really bored and you'd normally just eat the whole house because you've got nothing else to do, how about putting a comedy on and then choosing one thing to take with you to enjoy it with you? And what I'm getting at here is because having something instead of emotional eating doesn't work, because it's like diet mentality. I'm not going to emotional eat. I'm not emotional eating. I've got to do this instead. It doesn't work because you're telling yourself you can't do it. Any form of restriction, this is when it starts to come into the binge territory. Any form of restriction causes a reaction. Trust me, it's the only thing that works. I have been emotional eating, binge eating, having so much body hate for like 20 years, no exaggeration. I had my first diet when I was 9. I'm now 32, 33 in next week. I think it's next week, 2 weeks, don't know, 14th of April. That was irrelevant, but this is the only thing that works, because if everything else worked, why are we still struggling? And this is why I help my clients with. So other helpful points then before I end this video is, and I know some people are going to roll their eyes, right? Try to eat mindfully. And I know it's like, oh, here we go. And I say try, it doesn't have to be like, right, I have to sit here with my food and I've got to be in silence and I've got to smell everything and I've got to like chew like a million times before I swallow. No, just be mindful of what you're eating. So if you're going to eat like a whole fucking bar of chocolate, like I'm talking a big one, what's the point in those little ones? Let's even be honest, there's not even any point in buying a little one. If you ask me, they're just not nowhere near big enough. So if you're going to have a big bar of chocolate, why not enjoy every single bite of that chocolate? Like, I do smell my chocolate, I do smell food. Like, I have a bit of a weird obsession with like smelling food. So I do sit with my bar of chocolate, get like a plate for the chocolate. I know it sounds a bit weird. Get an actual plate, put it on the plate, break it into bits, and then like smell it and then really savor it. So, no judgments on how much you're eating, but why not thoroughly enjoy your food? If you really fancy McDonald's, then really concentrate on what you're eating and really enjoy it, because then you might find when you start to practice this over time, you'll actually not eat as much as you used to. And you might be like, oh, actually, I've had enough. Yeah, I can have it later. So mindful eating does really help, especially when you're eating emotionally, because we tend to just want to stuff down our feelings. So just practice slowing down a little bit and enjoying what you're eating. It's never really about the food as well, by the way. People used to say this to me, and I'd be like, well, it is about the food because clearly I'm binging every night. So tell me more. But what I've learned, especially with myself and all my clients, is, say, for example, emotional eating, it's not about the food. The core problem you think is because you feel powerless over food. No, the core problem for emotional eating, again, binge eating, I'm going to talk about a later date because that's separate. The core problem from emotional eating actually stems from being powerless over your emotions and not being able to control your emotions or control the situation. So it's really never about the food. That's just like a side thing to it. So again, everyone has all these layers. When clients come to me, they come to me like a big ball of wool or string that's like got knots everywhere. And what they've been trying to do themselves is get this big ball of string, which is them, and like just pull. I wish I had that analogy like in physical form, but I haven't. I haven't really got a ball of string around the house. But you pull in and the knots are just getting tighter and tighter, and you're not going to untangle. You might untangle like a random bit, but then you're going to have even more knots like further along the line of this ball of string. So what I'm getting at is what I do in my coaching is I take this ball of string, aka the person, and we're like, right, let's start on this knot first, and you have to gradually loosen the knot. There's no point just pulling it because it doesn't work. Any force, any forcefulness doesn't work. You have to be gentle, be curious about which way the string's going in the knot, and like untie the knot. So when you've got that knot untied, you can move on to the next one. And before you know it, you'll have a ball that's not got any knots in it. So that's my coaching analogy. Do you like it? So before I end this, one big thing I would like to say, and I said this a little bit before, if you've got body hate and poor body image at the root of your emotional eating, again, like negative feelings towards your body, then unfortunately this one is multi-layered, and I can't give you all the answers now. That's why I said the word unfortunately. It's multi-layered, it's complicated, and it's unique for each person. We all have our own body stories, and you can make permanent progress in this area. Like, I'm an expert in teaching women how to improve their body image, and that actually took me the longest. I stopped binge eating and emotional eating, and the body image stuff was like still difficult for me, but I definitely got there. It takes longer, but it's definitely doable. Seriously, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And that's not comparison saying, oh, I'm the worst person for the body image in the whole world. Like, I was so fucking bad. Like, I couldn't even have a shower with the light on. I'd literally shower in the dark so I didn't have to see my body. I would literally just cover all the mirrors, and it was not a good place to be. But now I'm just free, and that's what I help women do as well. So I hope you liked this. Thank you for the people that joined live. I can't see if you're live on Facebook because I've not got my Facebook tab open. Let me have a look if anyone's live. But on a serious note, if I can help you, please let me know. Just reach out to me. And sending you all my love. And by the way, I've been giving a few worksheets out for free lately. I have been giving away the Path to Purpose. So if at this time, all this coronavirus stuff, it's probably making most of us just stay inside. Well, of course, most of us, but like, you might find that you have more time on your hands. So it could be a good time to completely look at your life in a different way. So my Path to Purpose worksheet is actually a worksheet to help you discover what your purpose is in this life. It's very exciting. So if you want that, just hit me up. My other free worksheet is I created yesterday for an amazing young lady. I thought I'd share it with everyone else too, is how to stop labeling foods as good or bad. So I created a worksheet, which I love to do because this was a biggie for me. I created that yesterday, and the other one was, what was my other one? Oh yeah, how to create a morning routine that fits for you, because everyone's different. So if you want any of those worksheets, just send me a DM, email me, let me know. Love to you all. I'm going to end Facebook first time because I ended Instagram first last time. So bye, Facebook. End this live.